The auction lot was labeled simply, "Unknown container space debris, as is." Jack Harlow shifted his weight, trying to hide his interest as the auctioneer droned on. Nobody else seemed to care about the battered metal cylinder. Jack's salvage business was 3 months behind on dock fees, and he needed something, anything, to turn a profit. One credit, anyone. One single credit for this mysterious piece of space junk. Jack raised his hand. 1 credit. The auctioneer looked almost relieved. Sold to the gentleman in the back. Towing the container back to his small salvage yard took the last of his fuel. The thing was massive, 8 meters long and 3 wide, covered in strange markings that reminded him of water stains. The alloy wasn't standard, but it might fetch enough to keep the lights on another month. "What you find this time, Jack?" Dex, his AI assistant, projected from a small hovering drone. "Another empty fuel cell, or maybe a broken nav system you can pretend is vintage." "Very funny." Jack ran his hand along the container's surface. "This is different. The metal alone should be worth something." Jack activated his cutting torch. The beam struggled against the strange alloy, but eventually a seam appeared. With a hiss of escaping pressure, the container's seal broke. "Atmospheric containment detected," Dex announced. "Interior environment -47 degrees Celsius." Jack paused. "Wait, this thing's pressurized, after who knows how long in space." He wrenched the panel wider. Cold vapor billowed out, momentarily blinding him. As it cleared, Jack froze, torch dropping from his hand. Inside were 3 transparent pods, each containing what appeared to be a woman, but not human. Their skin shimmered with a subtle blue iridescence. Delicate, fin-like structures framed their faces. They weren't breathing. "Dex, are they dead?" Scanning, the drone hovered closer. "Negative, life signs detected but extremely faint. These appear to be cryostasis chambers." "Alien women in cryostasis," Jack whispered. He'd heard stories of non-human refugees from the Outer Rim Wars but never seen one. A warning light began pulsing inside the container. One of the pods was malfunctioning, its temperature rising rapidly. "Jack, the stasis field is failing in Pod 1, Dex reported urgently. "Life signs increasing." The pod's surface became translucent, then transparent. Inside, the woman's eyes snapped open, solid violet with no visible pupils. She thrashed against her confines, screaming in a language Jack couldn't understand. "Dex, how do I open this thing?" "Unknown interface, but the pod appears to be responding to her distress. Automatic release imminent." With a hydraulic sigh, the pod split open. The alien woman tumbled out, gasping and shivering. Jack caught her before she hit the floor. She was lighter than he expected, her skin cold to the touch. Her violet eyes locked with his, and she spoke, melodic, urgent sounds that meant nothing to him. When he didn't respond, she grabbed his arm, pointing frantically at the other pods. One of them was showing warning indicators. "Jack," Dex's voice was unusually somber. "The other stasis chambers are destabilizing. Their power supply is critical." The alien woman's expression shifted from panic to desperation as she looked at her still frozen companions. She turned to Jack, placing her hand on his chest, then pointing to the failing pods. The message was clear: help them. Jack looked at the strange markings on the container's exterior again. They weren't water stains. They were deliberate attempts to obscure identification symbols. Someone had tried to hide this container. "Dex, reroute emergency power to those pods, and get Meyer on the comm." As the alien woman watched him work, her breathing steadied. She touched his arm with fingers that were slightly webbed, her skin warming under his touch. Jack had no idea what he'd just purchased for 1 credit, but he knew with absolute certainty that his life would never be the same. Meyer arrived at Jack's salvage yard within hours, her eyes widening at the sight of the alien woman huddled beneath thermal blankets in Jack's workshop. "When you said non-human female, I thought you were exaggerating," Maya whispered, her dark curls framing a face full of wonder. The xenolinguist approached slowly, hands visible. "I've studied dozens of languages from the Outer Rim, but I've never seen someone like her." The alien woman, who Jack had mentally started calling Violet for her striking eyes, watched Maya with cautious interest. The 2 remaining pods had been stabilized with emergency power cells, buying them time. "Try the standard greeting protocols," Jack suggested. Maya nodded and began making a series of gestures accompanied by simple phonetic sounds. To Jack's surprise, Violet straightened and responded with similar movements. "She understands the Galactic Coalition's first contact language," Maya exclaimed. "It's rudimentary, but it means she's encountered space-faring civilizations before." Over the next few hours, Maya pieced together basic communication. They learned that Violet's actual name was Valera, and she came from a water-rich world called Nyris. Her people were called the Neresi. "They're refugees," Maya translated as Valera made increasingly complex gestures. "Their world was conquered by something she calls the Dominion." These three escaped with important knowledge. Jack frowned. Knowledge of what? Before Maya could ask, alarms blared from the second pod. Its systems were cycling up. Another awakening had begun. Unlike Valera's chaotic emergence, this pod opened smoothly. The second alien woman, with slightly darker blue skin and elaborate markings along her temples, awakened with deliberate calm. Valera rushed to her side, speaking rapidly in their flowing language. "This is Thelia," Maya translated as the newcomer regained her strength. She was their expedition's navigator. Thelia studied Jack intensely before speaking. Maya's eyebrows shot up as she translated. "She says they were fleeing with something called the Resonance. I think it's technological, when they were attacked. Their ship was damaged, so they jettisoned themselves in the container, hoping allies would find them." "How long ago?" Jack asked. The answer stunned them all. The aliens had been adrift for nearly 70 years. That night, Jack found Valera standing by the viewport in his small living quarters, staring at the stars. She turned as he approached, eyes reflecting the distant lights. "Your world," she said in halting standard, words Maya had taught her. "Beautiful." "It's just a salvage station," Jack replied, standing beside her. "Nothing special." Valera shook her head and placed her hand over his heart. "You, beautiful." Jack felt heat rise to his face. Her touch felt electric, different. When she smiled, revealing slightly pointed teeth, something shifted inside him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. "Why did you help?" she asked. "Anyone would have," he lied. Valera tilted her head. "No, others." She made a cutting motion across her throat. Jack knew she was right. Most salvagers would have sold them to collectors or worse. He couldn't explain his decision, even to himself. When Valera swayed suddenly, Jack caught her. The proximity was intoxicating. Her skin smelled faintly of sea salt and something alien but not unpleasant. "Rest," he said, helping her to the cot he'd prepared. As she settled, her fingers lingered on his wrist. The moment stretched between them, uncomfortable yet exhilarating, like standing at the edge of an unexplored world. In the workshop, Dex's sensors detected a distant signal ping. Something had locked onto the container's signature. Something was coming. "We've got company," Jack announced, bursting into the workshop where Maya was helping Thelia adjust to movement after decades in stasis. "Military-grade vessel approaching fast." Valera and Thelia exchanged alarmed glances. "Dominion hunters," Thelia said in her newly acquired, accented standard. "They track the resonance." As if responding to her words, the third pod system suddenly accelerated. The final Neresi was waking far too quickly. "This is bad," Maya warned. "The defrost sequence is supposed to be gradual." The pod burst open with a spray of cryogenic fluid. The third alien, with striking silver markings across midnight blue skin, fell forward, convulsing. "Cora," Valera cried, rushing to her side. Jack grabbed his medkit. "What's happening to her?" "The resonance," Thelia explained urgently. "She carries it in her mind." For tense minutes they worked to stabilize Cora. When her eyes finally opened, a deeper violet than Valera's, she spoke rapidly, gripping Thelia's arm. "They've found us," Maya translated grimly. "The Dominion placed trackers in their genetic code. That's how they're tracking the container." Jack checked his sensors. The approaching vessel was 15 minutes out, an elegant but predatory-looking craft with weapon systems that would reduce his salvage yard to atoms. "We need to go," Jack decided. "My ship isn't much, but it's faster than it looks." As they prepared to flee, Cora pulled Jack aside. With Valera translating, she delivered a shocking revelation. The resonance wasn't technology. It was a harmonized telepathic ability that could neutralize the Dominion's primary weapon, a mind control frequency that had enslaved dozens of worlds. Our people resist naturally, Valera explained. Cora can teach others to resist too. The implications were staggering. No wonder they were being hunted. Loading the sisters onto Jack's ship, a modified transport called the Horizon, took precious minutes. Just as they detached from the salvage yard, the Dominion vessel appeared, sleek and menacing against the starfield. "Hold on," Jack shouted, engaging the experimental drive modifications he'd never quite dared to test. The Horizon shot forward with bone-crushing acceleration. Behind them, the salvage yard erupted in flames as the Dominion ship opened fire. In the cargo hold converted to living quarters, Valera found Jack hours later, after they'd temporarily outrun their pursuers. He was staring at navigation charts, searching for somewhere to hide. "You lost everything," she said softly, "because of us." Jack looked up, exhaustion etched on his face. It was mostly junk anyway. When Valera touched his cheek, her fingers left a trail of warmth. She leaned closer, hesitant yet determined. Their foreheads touched, a Neresi gesture of deep intimacy. "I will repay this debt," she whispered. Jack found himself entranced by her violet eyes, his heart racing as her lips, cooler than a human's but impossibly soft, brushed against his. The kiss deepened, awakening sensations he'd never experienced. On the bridge, Dex detected 3 more Dominion signatures entering the sector. The hunters were closing in. The abandoned mining colony on Vesta 9 hung in space like a forgotten ornament, once valuable, now discarded. Its massive, hollowed-out asteroid structure made it perfect for hiding. "No atmosphere in the main chambers," Jack reported as the Horizon drifted through the darkened docking bay. "But the emergency systems in the residential sector still have power." For 5 days, they'd evaded Dominion patrols, jumping between increasingly remote locations. Each jump had drained their resources further. Maya had made remarkable progress with the Neresi language, revealing more about their unique abilities. The sisters could communicate telepathically with each other and with physical contact, share emotions with humans. "The resonance is strongest when we are together," Thelia explained as they explored the abandoned habitation modules. "Cora holds the key frequency, but we amplify it." Cora remained the weakest of the 3, the forced awakening having taken its toll. As Jack helped her walk through the dusty corridors, she suddenly gripped his arm, her eyes flaring with violet light. "They're coming," she gasped. "They feel me thinking." Jack looked to Valera for explanation. "Her thoughts are loud," Valera said. "The hunters have sensitives who can detect her when she's conscious." They established a small base in what had once been the colony's medical facility. While Maya helped Thelia construct a resonance-dampening field from salvaged equipment, Jack found himself increasingly drawn to Valera. Their stolen moments became precious, her alien touch both familiar and exhilaratingly foreign. What had begun as curiosity had developed into something neither could name. When they kissed, Jack felt the strange sensation of her emotions flowing into him, her gratitude, her fear, and something deeper that made his chest ache. "On Nyris," she told him one night as they lay together on a makeshift bed, her luminescent skin casting soft blue light in the darkness, "we bond for life, our hearts become synchronized." "Is that what's happening to us?" Jack asked, tracing the delicate fins that framed her face. Valera's expression turned sorrowful. "It cannot be. I am the last of my lineage. My duty is to rebuild our people." Before Jack could respond, Maya burst in. "I've decoded the data from the container," she announced. "There's something you both need to see." The holographic projection showed thousands of Neresi in suspension, hidden throughout the galaxy. Valera and her sisters weren't the only survivors. They were scouts, sent to find allies before awakening the others. "There are more of you," Jack whispered, watching Valera's face transform with hope. Their celebration was short-lived. Dex's alarm shattered the moment. Proximity sensors had detected multiple ships entering the asteroid field. "They found us," Thelia said grimly. As they rushed to prepare defenses, Jack pulled Valera aside. "There's something I need to tell you," he began, his heart pounding. Valera placed her fingers over his lips. "I already know," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "I feel it here." She pressed her hand to his chest. Their kiss was desperate, loaded with unspoken promises. When they separated, Jack made a decision. "I'm going to help you find your people," he said. "All of them." Outside, the first Dominion ships began docking. The mining colony's narrow maintenance tunnels echoed with the sound of pursuit. Jack led the group deeper into the asteroid's core, where the thick mineral deposits might shield Cora's psychic signature. "This way," he whispered, helping Cora negotiate the uneven terrain. Behind them, the methodical thump of Dominion hunter boots grew louder. They reached the central processing chamber, a vast cavern filled with abandoned machinery. Maya quickly barricaded the main entrance while Thelia rigged the emergency systems to provide minimal lighting. "We can't keep running," Jack said, checking his blaster's charge. "Sooner or later, they'll corner us." Valera's expression hardened with determination. "Then we fight." Cora, whose strength had been gradually returning, stood straighter. "No, we do what we came to do. We demonstrate the resonance." The plan they formulated was desperate. Cora would broadcast the resonance at full strength, a psychic beacon that would both neutralize the mind control frequency and alert any Neresi in nearby systems. The risk was enormous. The effort might kill her in her weakened state. "Let me help," Jack said, recalling how Valera had shared emotions with him. "Maybe I can. I don't know, lend you strength somehow." Cora studied him with ancient eyes. The resonance was never meant for human minds. It could burn yours away. "I'll take that chance." As they prepared, Valera pulled Jack aside. Her skin glowed with heightened emotion, illuminating the darkened chamber. "Why would you risk this?" she demanded. "This isn't your fight." Jack took her hands in his. "I've spent my life salvaging forgotten things, never finding anything worth fighting for, until now, until you." Their embrace was interrupted by an explosion that shook the chamber. The Dominion hunters had breached the outer defenses. The sisters formed a triangle with Cora at its apex. Jack and Maya stood guard, weapons ready. "Now," Cora cried as the first hunters appeared. The three Neresi began to emit a harmonic vibration that made the air shimmer. Jack felt it resonate in his bones, his teeth, his skull. The approaching hunters staggered, their neural implants sparking. But it wasn't enough. More hunters poured in, adjusting their equipment to compensate. Without hesitation, Jack stepped into the triangle and took Valera's hand. The moment their skin connected, unbelievable pain crashed through him, like every nerve ending being rewritten. He screamed but held on. Something unexpected happened. Instead of his mind burning away, it expanded. Through Valera's connection, he became a conduit, amplifying the resonance. The hunters dropped their weapons, clutching their heads. Some fled, others collapsed. The Dominion control frequency that had enslaved their minds for generations shattered. As the resonance peaked, the asteroid's communication array suddenly activated. Answering signals were coming in from across the sector. Hidden Neresi, awakening from stasis, responding to the call. When it was over, Jack lay on the cold floor, Valera cradling him. His vision swam with afterimages of alien stars. "Did it work?" he rasped. Valera's smile was radiant. "Yes, our people are coming, and the hunters, they're free. You helped free them." In the days that followed, the first Neresi ships arrived, elegant vessels that seemed to swim through space rather than fly. Their leaders listened in amazement to the sisters' story and welcomed the former hunters who, liberated from Dominion control, sought asylum. On the horizon's observation deck, Jack found Valera watching her people's ships gathering. "So what happens now?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. "You go home, rebuild your civilization." Valera turned to him, her violet eyes luminous. "There is no home without you," she said simply. "When we connected, our hearts synchronized, it is done." She placed his hand on her chest, where her dual hearts beat in perfect rhythm with his single one. "The stars are wide," she continued. "My people need allies, guides to this new galaxy, someone who knows the forgotten places." Her webbed fingers intertwined with his. "Someone who knows how to find what others have lost." Jack pulled her close, his salvager's heart finally having discovered something truly irreplaceable. "Where do we start?" he asked. Valera's smile held the promise of 1,000 unexplored worlds. "Everywhere.